People who take your kindness for weakness are actually showing you theirs. Abusers ostensibly identify kind people they think they can manipulate, but that is their miscalculation. Kindness isn't naive. Kindness is a byproduct of an entire value system that the manipulator does not actually comprehend. Because they don't know what they're dealing with, it leaves the abuser in a position of weakness. Once I was working at an office and they wanted to renegotiate my contract. And in the meeting, I casually said, "That's not going to work for me." It was pretty matter of fact. And the woman I was meeting with was astounded. She left the room and went across the hall, and I saw them whispering in a conference room together with other executives. They were not just surprised, but actually offended and a little suspicious. I did get the terms I wanted, but that woman unfortunately showed a side of herself that I hadn't seen. Apparently, she assumed that our friendship would mean a lot more than it did. Do they really expect zero pushback at all for a job negotiation? Abusers tend to overvalue their presence in a kind person's life. Just because someone is kind doesn't mean you know what actually motivates them. And it definitely doesn't mean that they'll do whatever you say. Abusers tend to project their own motives onto others. They assume kind people will be people pleasing and deferential, like manipulators are, because a kind person is friendly. They also tend to have rigid expectations based on cliches and villain victim narratives. And then when that expectation isn't met, they have no ability to adjust whatsoever. This is weakness. It's a failed strategy. They may even play the victim themselves, declaring that you manipulated them, trapped them, lied, or betrayed them as the aggressor. They don't know what makes kind people tick. Abusers are baffled. If kindness isn't manipulatable, it isn't weakness. Unkind doesn't equal strength. Manipulative people know this, and they use kind behavior to control the optics of their public persona. Healthy people are kind to express themselves and more or less connect with others. Since abusers don't really have a self to express, the connection factor is incomprehensible to them. They can comprehend weakness as manipulation. However, Ted Bundy, the famous serial killer, would speak in a faint tone to draw people in and would hobble around asking for help to trap his victims. He used weakness to manipulate. It actually doesn't matter if abusers think you're weak or kind. It matters that you don't get abused. If you've been targeted for your kindness, some tactics do include outright aggression, violence, bullying, name calling, stalking, etc. Abusers may pick on kind people mainly because they think it will work. Let them know it won't work kindly. It really annoys them. Different people give out different qualities of kindness. Some is real, some is counterfeit. If you're listening to this, it's likely that your kindness is of high quality. All the more reason to give that kindness mostly to yourself. When kind people are kindest to themselves, they say no to manipulation. When kind people say no enough, abusers can't abuse and they fail. Think of how much astounded whispering will happen in conference rooms then. When we double down on harnessing our high quality kindness to give it to ourselves, we see how weak the abusers really always were. I might even argue you should give so much kindness to yourself that these dramas fade a little into the background until you return and express yourself to these abusers very kindly. Let me know what you think.